if you're getting married and you already own a business, you have to get a valuation on your business before you get married.
Really?
One of the biggest causes for business owners or practitioners to lose their practices or their businesses is divorce.
Even with me creating my own business, I'm crying. He's not crying, I'm crying, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. To not have this type of paperwork in place or to take this conversation seriously, I think it's almost irresponsible for you not to. What's like the worst situation you've seen? I'm curious.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I am so excited because we have a guest in the studio, and we're going to be talking about the conversation that most practice owners avoid with Gabriela Martinelli. So I'm super excited, and welcome to the CEO Conversations.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. I love to have the conversation that nobody wants to have.
Yes.
So I'm glad we're going to have it today. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So today's focus is how to protect your practice.
Yes.
And the reason why I wanted you to be here, because it reminds me of just when there's times of doom and gloom, what to do and what not to do, especially with the business side, and as you're building a practice when it comes to like family and estate planning and all the things. And so the work that you do is valuable, very valuable, but also there's a time and place for it. So tell people more about you, more about the work that you do.
Sure. So I am a divorce financial strategist, and I'm the founder at Ever After Wealth, and I work mainly with business owners and physicians. And what I do is I help them understand the finances of divorce, help them make the best decisions while they're going through this transition so they can protect their business and their practice. So as you said, yes, it's a very specific time in life, right? Is when you're going through a divorce. The key, though, is that a practice or a business could and should be protected before anyone brings the D word into the conversation. And I think that's the hard part because we don't want to think about that, right? Of course, you're in a relationship, you're very happy. You don't want to think, oh, we're going to go through this process and everything is going to change. And you're at risk of losing your practice, your business, your livelihood. So yeah, it's a very specific time, but you can protect yourself. Even if you're hoping for the best and you're in a very happy relationship, that would be the right time to do it. And of course, there's ways that we can help after, but ideally, yes, we can protect from a divorce, even if divorce is never brought up to the table.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying that, because I think that most folks are like, I'm happy. Why would I want to do that? It reminds me of like the prenup conversation, where it's more of a proactive conversation. It's more about protection. And I know for those who are listening, we have a lot of women who are listening to the podcast. I know that we do have some maybe men who listen to it, but mostly women. And that's hard because you don't necessarily want to throw a wrench in something that feels really good to be in, or maybe put up like red flags. So how do you suggest for folks to say, hey, in case I know that we're so happy and lovely and fantastic and I love you so much, but I want my business to be protected, and in case we get a divorce, then, how do you handle that?
So that's very interesting that you said. And I think that this conversation, I'm glad there's more women listening to us, because I think we are the ones that have to listen to this. Mm-hmm. I think we bring more heart and feelings into every single thing we do in life, relationships, business, practice, anything. And we need to learn to protect ourselves. So we can base everything on our feelings, but protecting ourselves is not selfish. It's actually good. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting potentially your patients. You're protecting your kids. You're protecting your family in a way, trying to protect yourself. And it is sometimes a tough conversation. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the women that I talk to, they don't even want to talk about it. Like they're not in that place. He would never do that. That would never happen to me. And in honesty, it's like, I believe you, and I know you believe that too. And if you're both in the same place, it shouldn't be that hard to bring up the conversation. And I think that is the key, right? Is if you're in a relationship where you feel comfortable bringing these conversations, that is a sign. Mm-hmm. Now, if as a woman, especially, you feel a little uneasy to bring the conversation, that is a red flag in itself. And honestly, we always hear about men bringing up the prenup conversation. don't we? Like it's always usually the soon-to-be husband that wants to protect what they have, what they built, or what their family they're bringing with their family. We as women, we should do that more often. It is okay to protect what we bring to the table, or what we anticipate we're going to bring to the table. So it's a hard conversation, but it's literally, as you say, protection. I always say we'll carry care insurance, pay all of our life since we turn 16 or 17 when we have a car. We don't see a dime back from that, but we're protected, right? Maybe we never had a car accident. This is the same thing. Is okay, we're going to put parameters, we're going to put guardrails, and I'm going to protect my work and my livelihood and what I'm building. I'm not taking away from what you are providing for me, but I'm going to protect what I am bringing to the table. And we may never have to use it. And that is okay.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much because it is like, I think men are just like, well, I've built this huge empire for myself and you ain't going to take me to the bank. And,
Yes.
and they just kind of insert that energy
Yes.
regardless of how the woman feels or how the partner is going to feel.
Yes, like they
if
don't
you
care.
Sign it, like I'm thinking, I'm a football fan and
Okay.
I'm thinking with Dak Prescott and he just went through like a prenup. The lady, like
Yes,
his
he
fiance
did.
at the time didn't want to sign the prenup. And
Yeah.
okay, and he was cheating on her, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
So
of
I
course,
think,
yes.
I think, when it comes to building an asset, women need to definitely protect themselves. And you said something about family, themselves, but also their team. So a lot of the practice owners, they have teams and there's larger teams. And so they're looking to the CEO to make sure that they're being good stewards over what they're building. And so part of being a good steward is protecting the asset that you're building. I'm curious to know what happens when you have it's your business, right? You're the one who has the LLC, you're the one who has the S corp, the corporation, whatever the structure is set up. What happens when you have maybe your spouse working inside of the business? Like how do you handle that?
That is a tough one. And this is when everything gets mixed because we talk about a business, a medical practice is a business. Yeah. Okay. And we handle a business as a business. And we also want to take advantage, right? We want to take advantage of the tax code. We want to see all the things that we can do in the practice. And we're all together. We're a team with your husband or your wife. And that is so interesting because when it comes to the divorce, there's two things we're going to see here is the business, the practice as a business is part of the marital estate that is going to be given a value and is going to be part of a division of assets, right? The other part potentially is the contribution of your spouse. And while your spouse is receiving income and maybe working, that can be taken into account double. It could be like, well, I mean, I'm contributing to this business. So it's not so much as it is your business and we're dividing it. It's all, I have some kind of ownership with this business. And what says on paper, if something was built or grew during the marriage, most states are going to consider that a marital property to be divided, whether is how the division works. Every state has different rules, and we talk a little bit more what the difference are, but that is going to be taken into consideration. I had a case where there was a medical practice where one of the spouses was doing the bookkeeping for 15, 20 years. In a sense, there was an argument of like, well, her contribution grew the business too. So there's a contribution to the growth that takes away potentially from the goodwill of this physician. So I think that's very important. The other key about this, and this is interesting because I know that a lot of spouses have the business owners have their spouses as an employee, and sometimes they don't work in their business, but they receive a paycheck. Well, this is the interesting part. If you start this process and your spouse is your employee, even if it's on paper, you cannot remove them. And there's a very high probability that a judge is going to order you to continue to pay that for now, while everything is taken into consideration. So you're at a risk, and then you have, and I have a case where, yes, there's a business owner and there's a spouse that continues to receive 1.5 years into the separation income, and they don't work into the company. But they are required to keep them because you got to stay, the status quo cannot change while you're negotiating. So you cannot just stop paying them. And if you think about that, when you're going through the emotions of a divorce and your business is at risk, and you're on top of that, you're paying them a salary when you're divorcing them, and you can't stop that while they're not working for you. So there's all of those things I have to take into consideration, because even if you do one of those drastic changes during the process, you can be penalized by the judge if you end up in front of a judge. So that's why the preparation and the understanding the risks before, so you walk into that situation knowing, like, maybe it's too late for some people that, oh, my spouse has been working in my business or not working and getting income for 10 years, I can't remove them. Okay, well, just know the risks. Prepare for that, because that maybe there's a high probability that's what's going to happen. Like, it definitely in the beginning, you can't change anything. And then a judge may decide go otherwise, which there's a lot of conversation about whether a judge can order a business to pay somebody or not. The problem is the status quo. If you change it, a judge can punish you in other ways. And you don't want to give them that upper hand.
Yeah, thank you for answering that, because I think it's complicated.
Very
is
much.
What's coming across for me. It's like
Yes.
this is so complicated. So you have the emotions, you're trying to maybe build something together, or you think like, I'm trying to build something that's going to benefit our family collectively.
Correct.
So for the folks who are like, this is interesting, what do I do? Like, how do you even bring up something where you want to put something in place to protect the asset?
Well, I think that you bring it from a personal. You don't say, I want to protect this asset. Is I want to protect myself. Will you help me protect myself? And in order to do that, you will have to have a good communication with your spouse. And again, if that is a conversation you can now have, that is a problem. For example, I'm going to be very basic here. I know we're talking about practitioners and medical practices, but even as simple as I sometimes tell my clients, especially women, sometimes they are stay at home and they don't have a retirement account. And I say, well, talk to your spouse about getting your own retirement account. There's options. Talk to them about contributing to your own in your own name. That conversation sometimes is so hard for them. And if you think about that, there has to be an underlying issue, because if you cannot come to your spouse and say, hey, I would like to have something in my name, I'm contributing to this situation, can I please have something on my name to be protected? And then, of course, they will say, oh, but everything will be yours too, and blah, blah. Well, technically, but you know how long it takes to get there? Like the process it takes, and then all the money you have to spend to get there. So this is almost the same. If you're in a place where you think that you may want to protect your practice, I certainly would recommend talking to a divorce financial strategist, because what we do is actually see what is may be bad. And then we can have a plan, and we can bring out a plan of, okay, this might be things that you want to do to get these guardrails. Maybe this is how you want to bring it up. And in reality is, if someone is not supporting you in that, then maybe you need to talk to someone else and not a financial person. Because I do feel that we are scared of having the conversations. We got scared what they're going to do. And then in reality, it's like maybe we're going to find out something we don't want to find out, right? We're talking more psychology now and emotions and practicality and finances. But I think that is when we don't want to bring something up is because we're afraid of what the answers will be. And I think if you're already thinking that way, there is something that you may want to look into just to know what the risk might be. If it happens, again, it may never happen.
Yeah. So what are the numbers that you're paying attention to?
Okay. So basically, first of all, is the books. And one of the biggest risks for a business owner and practitioner is when they commingle the personal expenses with the family expenses with the practice expenses. You have to keep those separated. And I know it's hard. And sometimes when you have a solo practitioner, right, it's almost like a familiar thing. Okay, like, well, I'm going to use this car. We're going to go on vacation. I'm going to get a tax break. That creates the biggest issue, because, you know, when you need a business valuation, you need to separate what is really an expense for the business, how much the business has and makes, and how much is actually really financial expenses, family expenses, because it can go either way. And you want that to be very accurate. So this is like business 101 is do not commingle your expenses. And that, because when you have your spouse's valuator that is going to come and look at that, and they're going to decide whether expense is family or not. They get to make those decisions. They get to make the assumptions. And you can defend them with your own professional. But the problem with that is, first of all, the time and the spending of the professionals to do something that you could have prevented, right? And the other part is the credibility. Because if you saw something weird with the numbers, or you're trying to claim that some expenses are businesses or they're personal, or you want them to be personal because you don't want to have to pay support, or you prefer to be in the business, so you reduce the actual value of the business, there you start this battle of what is true. And for a business owner not to have credibility going through this process is one of the biggest challenges, because you need opposing side to believe you, which probably they won't.
Yeah.
Their attorney will probably won't believe you. And then you had to get a judge to believe you. So if there's anything that looks shady in a sense on your books, they're all going to be suspecting that something may be also be bad, which might not be the case, but it's just all about perception, right? At this point. So that will be the one of the biggest things that we look at is, okay, let's look at your books. Are they straightforward? Show me what expenses you're paying from the business. Show me how you're handling payroll. How are you paying yourself? How much are you paying yourself? And whether you're taking distributions or not. Because the other part is don't make big changes. Don't decide that suddenly you don't get paid, or suddenly you don't get income, or you change your distributions. So you have to be very conscious about keeping everything the same. So we may want to revisit the standards for the industry. Are you getting paid what you should get paid? Or you're trying to do, are you doing something that to get advantages on your taxes, for example, which is cool. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do. It's just you have to know how it's going to look like if you ever go through this process. So that will be the main idea. Also, what kind of contributions from the marital money went into your business? So did you start the business because you had savings from before? Do you own the business before the marriage? And by the way, this one is just, I don't want to forget to say this.
Yeah.
If you're getting married and you already own a business, you have to get a valuation on your business before you get married.
Really?
Oh, yes. Value your business. Because you need to understand that then from the moment you're married, depending how the different states calculate the growth on your business, up to the day of the divorce, that business is going to grow. The growth is going to be marital. So, but if you don't know what the value was back in, 2001 when you got married, you're going to need two valuations. You know how hard it's going to be to get the 2001 valuation and how expensive? So you can know the difference between 2001 and 2026. So if you're getting married, I'll suggest do a valuation if you own a business. If you own a business today and you're married and you're not getting divorced, do a valuation. Because you need to have an understanding of what you have and the value, whether there is enterprise value, how much is your goodwill value. You can establish all this right here, right now. And just hold on to it. Keep it there, just in case. Protection.
So some people might be wondering, like, okay, well, who do I go to for the valuation?
Okay, that's another one. So it's very important that, so it really depends what the valuation is for. If you're going to valuation because of a marital issue or divorce, you need to make sure that the valuator understands your industry and also understands the laws and where your business is located, because they approach the things differently. When you do a valuation for a business for divorce, it's not the same that you go to a broker dealer and say, I may want to sell my business. Can you tell me how much I can get for my business? That is different, right? Because again, you may have some discounts that you don't get when you are going through a divorce, because you go by the divorce law and what they believe. Goodwill in a lot of the states is marital property. So your goodwill that runs this business will be divided in a sense. They can divide the goodwill, but the value will. So that is very important that gets established, and is established by an evaluator that understands how the divorce court is going to look at this valuation. What are the discounts? How do we account for personal goodwill? What is enterprise goodwill? How do we look at future earnings? Because future earnings are important. So first and foremost, it has to be knowledgeable about divorce and the other part of your industry. I've seen, especially with physicians, I mean, I was working with a dentist, and the other side had a valuation for the case, and I'm looking through the valuation, and they used practices that were not in the same location. They didn't understand how goodwill was accounted for in that state, particularly his state. And so I started looking at that. I said, well, this person doesn't understand what he's looking into, because you can't compare a practice that is in North Carolina to a practice that is in California. Yes. It's not the same. So you need the comparables have to be the same. A practice that has 25 team members with a practice that have 5. A practice that had 3 or 4 medical practitioners that are all associates together. They own the practice together with a solo practitioner that it probably operates at a different level. So I think it's very important that this evaluator understands not just the jurisdiction, but also the industry. That is key. And you have to do your due diligence. Like, I'll ask all the questions, and I certainly have a list of evaluators I use with my clients, but you had to do your due diligence when you go through these experts. Yeah.
Yeah, and some folks might too. Like, I know what goodwill is, but what is goodwill?
Okay. So goodwill is everything that is accomplished, is your what you bring as a person to the business, right? So for example, a physician brings their knowledge, what they study, their experience, maybe their hands, literally their body. Like, a chiropractor uses their hands, and that is a very high volume goodwill. The other part of goodwill that a lot of people don't think about is the reputation, your connections, the years of experience that you've been doing this. We don't pay enough attention to that because nobody just sees the doctor's name and said, "Oh, I'm going there." No, usually we ask our friends, right? You are our neighbors. You try to get a sense of who this person is. So the reputation is part of the goodwill too. And it's not transferable, right? You can pass the reputation. So I think that we need to think of that as what the person brings into the business. And that actually has a consequence in the valuation, because let's say this practice is very successful, right? And they have very significant clients. They keep coming. Maybe it's a dentist, for example. They have their patients. They keep coming. They keep getting more patients out. If we sell this practice tomorrow and another physician comes in, are all of these patients going to stay? Or they're going to go find the other physician? Or they're going to go find somebody else because they like this physician. He's nice, he's kind, his bed manner is what I need. Or he's straight and direct and I want a doctor that tells me how it is. We all have different requirements when we go to find a professional, especially a medical professional. So that is something that we need to bring into the table, is like, how much is this doctor really holding on to this business and how much is just the team or the building? Potentially not, because, maybe this doctor has a system or they do something that other physicians don't do. Well, we're going to go to that one. But if he's not there, then we have to go find another one. So that's important to bring. And that is goodwill, is everything that is brought into the business, that the business creates growth in the business because of the person. And that is very important, which also takes into consideration the emotional state of the physician, right? The health of the physician. A lot of my clients going through a divorce, they are in this stressful situation. And a lot of the times they tell me, it's like, I can't see patients and I had to cancel and the income is going down. And it's a reality. Your business is going to suffer during that divorce, not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just because it's the nature of the circumstances. And that affects the business. So anything that affects this particular person, that in return affects the value of the business or the growth of the business, that's personal goodwill.
Okay. And I think the more that I'm hearing you speak, like, this is why you want to have the conversation ahead of time. So that way you don't get to the place of, having to go through the valuations and who brought what and the reputation and all the things. So once people get the courage to have the conversation with their spouse, then what do they do?
Well, so if there's changes that had to be at the business level, they can just implement those changes. If they wanted to sign a document, for example, you can sign a postnuptial agreement. So that is an agreement you sign after you're married. Maybe you're married for a long time. Maybe you just got married. You say, maybe we want to establish some ground rules about the business. Maybe the business is mine. Or we can establish that 60% of the business is my goodwill and that you're not going to ask for it if anything happens between us. So you can definitely have the legal guardrails depending on what the changes are. Some changes had to do with the numbers. You may need some legal back in those after those conversations. But it's just very important that don't do it, talk about it, and let it go.
Yes.
You have to plan for that. And for that, you need a divorce attorney. Though you're not getting through a divorce, but you're signing a postnuptial agreement because you want to make sure that legally you're protected, because that's the other part. Let's say I'm talking to you about your business and said, okay, listen, your spouse is okay, we're going to do this, your business, this is the guardrails, and this is the numbers we agree on moving forward if ever anything happened to us, right? Well, as of the numbers, I can tell you exactly what to do, but let's make sure that the legal document actually reflects the intention. So it's not a document that at the end of the day is not going to reflect what you wanted to do with those numbers. So you go to an attorney and you sign a document. But the verbal agreements, no, those are not going to count. No, it's all about proving. It's all about having, some paper trail to back your, whatever your statement is.
No, I think the postnup, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, it is a
that
thing.
You could
Yes, you can.
actually,
At
that
any
you can
time.
actually do that.
At any time. Yeah, at any time. There's a lot of couples that go through sometimes they're going through a divorce and then they're trying to organize everything and then they decide they want to give it another try. And then one of the spouses is like, okay, fine, but let's do this postnup. So if we don't work out, we're ready, kind of thing. Like we don't have to go through all of this again. A lot of people do that. But postnups are a thing. It could be when you're trying to start a practice. Maybe you're married for 10 years. Maybe you work for a hospital. And then you one day decide, you know what, I'm going to open my practice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can we do a postnup? Can we do a postnup where we establish that this practice is mine and only mine? And that can be done. And that's how you protect yourself because of a divorce, which is not estate planning. Divorce is very different.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's just the uncomfortable conversation and being comfortable with having that conversation. And then you'll feel the relief once you have that conversation. And then
100%.
I love what you're saying too, is that when we think about the open and honest relationship, you should be able to say, I'm building something. Yes, we both get to benefit, but at the end of the day, it's on my back with my sweat and my tears. And even for my own experience, I know even with me creating my own business, I'm crying. He's not crying. I'm crying, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think even with some folks that are listening to this,
And can we be honest with something that you have the business owner is a woman? If she's the wife, she's probably running the business, growing the business, running the kids, running the household. Because it's probably doing it all. It's not just out there with the business.
Yeah.
Because it's a reality for the wives. So I think that is why it's important to protect that. And the other thing, unfortunately, is that one of the biggest cause of for business owners or practitioners to lose their practices or their businesses is divorce.
Wow.
Because you're not prepared for it. So then suddenly you have this business that you have to value in $2 million aside from other things. So you have to come out with $1 million to pay your spouse their share, who has $1 million sitting out there. It's very rare. Some people do. But again, if you have $1 million cash, that means that probably your business is $5, $6, $7, $8 million. So you have to pay $4 million. So it's really hard to come out with that. So then what happens? You need to go in debt. You need to get a loan. Remember, when you pay for this, you pay after tax. So you pay with your income after tax that you have to give up to pay this big portion of something. So if you could establish that before anything, it just changes everything. And you're right, before you had to go spend money in, experts or like do it before, protect yourself. We don't want to spend money.
Yes.
But if you spend money in the front end, I promise you save money later. And you potentially save your business.
Absolutely.
And your practice and your team, because I think you talk about your team, and that's very important. How many people you may live no jobs anymore, and your patients,
Yes.
because they don't have you.
I think too, like even to hear that you would have to pay money that you don't necessarily have sitting in the bank. What comes up for me would be bankruptcy too.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yes, it
So,
happens.
yeah.
Yes, a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
Yes. I have talked to several business owners that when we talk about what I do, they are like, oh, where were you 2 years ago? I'm like, what happened? And then they go on talking about how they lost their business. And 7 months after they signed, the ink was not even dry and they had to file for bankruptcy. So you put a lot of effort on that. And if you're a physician, all the years you study, all the money you pay, and then growing a practice or growing a business, it's not easy. And you can lose it very easily if you're not protecting yourself. It's all about protecting yourself. It's just not hoping that your marriage is going to break down. It's saying, if it happens, I'm protected. If not, we're going to be happy forever.
Yeah. And I would love to say, I'm a child of divorce, and I would love to say that marriages will last forever. I believe that the right marriages do, because I also have my step-parents who are still together, and and even with like my stepdad, he had passed away, but they still had a very happy relationship, happy marriage. But I also know that at the end of the day, these are responsible conversations. And I think even from healthcare, I always talk about healthcare. Healthcare is a very lucrative industry.
Yes.
And when you're building something in it, then the valuations or like the offers and people coming and wanting to buy the practice and just the value of the practice is what I'm trying to say is definitely there. So to not have this type of paperwork in place or to take this conversation seriously, I think it's almost irresponsible for you not to.
I think I agree with you. And there's another layer that usually happens with physicians. And this is very important because I think physicians are a target. Mm-hmm. They're a target for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think that they had to be very cautious about what they do too. Mm-hmm. And I usually tell them, okay, protection through divorce or for a potential divorce, it cannot be done by your CPA, your financial advisor, your banker, not even your attorney. Your financial protection for divorce has to come from a divorce specialist.
Wow.
Because there's other things that they're trying to get to, and it's not protecting you through the divorce. And I think that is very important. And that's what happens sometimes, right? You start a practice and you're in the whole this thing that you are excited, but you're also scared. And then whoever comes and you're trying to get the help. And if you don't stop and say, okay, who is going to help me with this particularly? And physicians, I always tell them, I said, you are physicians. You know what specialists are. Like you literally know that. You're sending people to specialists when you cannot help them. This is exactly the same. But I think there cannot be anything wrong with having a conversation about protection.
Yes.
All you're doing is protecting your livelihood, protecting your effort, all the years that you put out there, studying and practicing and everything else, and your reputation, you have to protect it. It is a hard conversation, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be as hard, and we certainly should be having it.
Yes. And I know that you keep referring to like physicians, but we have all healthcare.
Every
clinicians and providers who are listening to this, and I think this conversation is for everyone. So if you own a healthcare business, and you are wanting to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and not, again, it's just a matter of being a good steward over what you're building. Then you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success.
100%. You have to protect it. Yeah, you really have to protect it. And if you have kids, you protect it for your kids and everything else that comes after. And I think, again, if you are in that type of relationship, it should be known. I wanted to piggyback what you said. It was funny. We were having a conversation with some friends the other day, and this couple, they have older kids. They're younger, they're in college, and they both have boyfriends and girlfriends, and they're like, and so my husband is a divorce attorney. So we're sitting there talking to them, and then one of them says, we're talking about protecting everything when they get married, and one of them said, well, do we need some kind of paperwork if they get married, or what do we do to protect what we're going to give them, right? And then the other spouse said, well, they're very nice people. They are so good. I am no worry. And it was funny because I just look at them and I said, well, we too make our living out of nice people that got married, and now they're going through this process. So it just was interesting because they were going on and on. She was going on and on about how nice, and I thought, I literally make a living out of this. So I understand the niceness of it, but you can't protect yourself. And if they are very nice, good people, they should hear you and understand that you want to protect yourself. And I think that should be the key. Because more likely you would do that for them.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because again, it's yours.
It's yours.
Yeah, it's yours. Like it is 110% yours.
And again, and that's almost when you say, "Well, I'm trust us." Yes, let's put this in a paper. If we ever go through this, we're all settled. But I trust that we can make it, so I don't have to worry. Because at the end of the day, if you're together until the end, it's yours.
Yeah.
This is just in the event of a separation, right? So,
Yes.
again, protection.
Well, I love this conversation so much, so much. So I'm just curious so have the conversation, definitely talk with you to get numbers and all the things, and then make sure that the post-nup is in place if you've already married, or the pre-nup.
Correct.
Yep, if you aren't there yet, and then making sure that you are just having confidence in what you're building, confidence in what you bring to the table, confidence in the fact that if they're not open and willing to go to say okay, then that tells you a lot more about themselves or your partner as a person.
Your partner as a person. And just believe that you have a right to protect what you're building in your future. You own that to yourself.
What's like the worst situation you've seen? I'm curious. Oh, I'm sorry.
So the worst, it was actually, this was a heart surgeon, and he worked at a practice, but he also worked for the hospitals. They had contracts or whatever. He was a surgeon, and he had a practice, and they went at it for a lot of years because the wife considered that it was her practice too, which it wasn't. She wasn't even a physician. And they had like different business valuations that kept going at a different rate, but he was very well known in the community. He was a professor, and he was really well known, and they did not wanted to bring up his goodwill. They never brought it up. And by the time that I came on the table, it had been years that they were going at it, and it was very stressful on him. And he actually couldn't work for 6 months because he was very sick. That was around COVID, and it was interesting because I remember him telling me, it's like, I can't do this anymore because I just can't do it anymore. And his health and they're not considering that. So it was part of considering that he was getting older. So he was not going to be able to practice the same way. So the value of the practice was not going to keep going high. He just couldn't, again, as a physician, you put a lot of your body in it. And the other part was finding the right valuator so they will understand how the goodwill worked. By the time that we got there was a difference of almost close to $2 million, which is ridiculous. And I was very glad that he brought me, though they have lost so much money fighting this, but he didn't have the right people. And that was heartbreaking for me because, and I want to bring this up, it's not just about the physician that owns the practice or the business. You are also losing money, but the other spouse fighting you is also losing a lot of money. And a lot of the times when I'm on the other side, I'm like, can we be reasonable about this? Can we see what we're really talking about and try to be reasonable so you can also move on? Because at the end of the day, you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to experts to try to fight one or the other side. And sometimes you just need to come to the table and have a conversation. But it is heartbreaking sometimes because when you don't have the right information and you're not prepared, it becomes this battle sometimes, and nobody really wins, except for the experts sometimes that are working, for you and trying to point a point. And again, I feel like that was, for me, was hardworking. He was getting older, and he was not going to be able to sustain the practice. At the end of the day, the practice had to be sold, even though we reduced the value, but he couldn't sustain it. He couldn't work as much. So I think he ended up just with the contracts with the hospital and had to let go of his practice. And that was important to him. His whole idea was to bring somebody else so they will take over and continue his legacy. And he just couldn't make it because this battle was going for so long. And they really were not paying a lot of attention to the numbers, which is the other thing. I mean, like, okay, but again, it goes to not having the right people, having the right person. That was very sad to me.
Yeah, that is sad, especially when you want to leave a practice for legacy.
Yes.
And you have to give up that legacy. And even I think about, like, you were saying he was older.
He was getting older.
So, like, in his younger years, sitting there thinking, I'm building up something that I'm going to be able to leave behind or be able to pass down or being able to do that. And now I can't because of this situation, and now I have to go work for the hospital.
Exactly. And the other part also that sometimes has a game here is if you have partners. you have to make sure that there's something in your operating agreement, in your contracts, that says that if one of them goes through a divorce, what happens? Because if you have two associates, you have two physicians, they're working together, and one of them is going through a divorce, the business is an open book. All of the books get to be shown to the other person. You may end up somehow having to do things with this practice that you don't want to do. So if you're going to bring a partner into your practice, make sure you establish what happens if one of us goes through a divorce. Not because anybody's going through a divorce, but because it can, because this life can happen. Physicians have disability insurance, right? Why do they have it?
Yes.
Exactly. Same thing.
Yes.
Same thing.
No, and that's good because I know even with the clients that I work with, I have co-founders.
Yes.
Who are working together, and then I know that there's co-founders who are probably listening as well. So.
And you have to be careful with that too, because when the other person is going through a divorce, it affects you. It affects the practice and affects you as an owner. You know, and that can create friction between the partners and other things, and you may not want to have to end up dealing with somebody's spouse. So that is important too. Like if you're going to bring a partner, let's establish some ground rules in case of divorce or anything else that can happen in life.
Yeah, and I would say because even to bring in that conversation, if you have two co-founders together and they can't talk through what happens, and if they like, I don't want to talk to my partner about this, or I don't want to talk to my I don't want to talk to my spouse or anything about this, then you have to push them to do it.
But you have to do it.
Yeah.
And that is the key if you want to protect what you have. If not, it's fine. I mean, you can go through life and see what happens. I feel like it almost gives you more peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Be protected.
Yeah.
Just protect yourself and then just keep going building together, maybe forever. But it's just protecting what you're building and protecting your partner too. I think that is, if you're going to co-found something, if you're going to have a partner, I think it would be important for them to feel like you're also protecting them, that, we're bringing all this to the table together. We should be making sure that the other one is protected as well. It's a different type of partnership.
Yes.
It is, with your spouse, but it's a partnership too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been so lovely.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Gabriela, where can people find you?
So they can find me on my website. It's www.everafterwealth.com. I also have my own podcast, Divorce and Money.
Nice.
And there's a few episodes specific for physicians there. So they want to go check it out. And they can just email me directly, Gabriela@everafterwealth.com. And by the way, I can help anyone in any state. I'm certified in all the 50 states. I have clients all over the United States. Now, attorneys has to be part of your state, or they have to be, licensed in your state. But when it comes to me, I can help clients everywhere. I have clients all over the state. So that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can always send that information over to any attorney that they're working with.
100%. I work with attorneys all the time. And it's better when we do as a team, because we're protecting both angles.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Dream teams.
Dream team.
Yes.
Yay.
I'm sure you'll be getting some phone calls.
Yeah, happy to have a conversation. It's just a conversation, what we can do to protect. And again, it's about protection. I'm not trying to get anyone to get divorced.
Right,
Part.
That's
not what I do.
That's not the goal.
That's not what I do. I always say, I'm not promoting divorce. I'm promoting protection.
Yes,
That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
responsible stewardship thing.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys. So I will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.